Welcome on Tattoo Senti. Perfume? Do you like it? Well, on Tattoo Senti, the first perfume podcast, we can't stop talking about it. So, here we smell it all. We smell perfume ingredients, we smell perfume with its perfumers creators, and we also talk to the creator of perfume brands. I'm Bettina Aykroyd, your hostess and your perfume expert. So let's meet up every week on Tuesday on Tattoo Senti for a perfume talk. Let's continue the conversation with Johann Maria Farina. Good. So now let's go back to the Haute Cologne famous story. What is the difference between the Aqua Mirabilis and the Haute Cologne?
In general, there is no difference because Aqua Mirabilis was a generic term for every fragrance 300 years ago. On the one side, you had Hungarian water, which was romarine water, or you had a mixture of different essential oils, and then you called it Aqua Mirabilis or Admirable. It was a generic term because the term parfum or eau de parfum or eau de toilette was not existing. So it's a no-name perfume name, actually. On the contrary, eau de cologne was one of the first brand name in perfumery, and this was the name only of the Eau Admirable of Farina. And that's the difference. You cannot mix it up. On the other side, eau de cologne now is a generic term because it was successful. But in the 18th century, at the beginning, it was only the name of Farina's Eau Admirable.
And a lot is said about and around Paolo Feminis. What is your point of view about it?
That's very easily because we have all the records in our archive. Paolo Feminis lived also in Cologne, was a bit older than our founder. He was a merchant as well, and probably did also make an Eau Admirable, which was different to that of Farina. And when he died, his company was closed and not continued in 1835. But actually, Farina was founded in 1709, and so they had more than 25 years parallel together. And the both companies were 200 meters apart. So they had close relationship, friendly relationship because they came from the same valley. So they didn't have any quarrels with it. But feminists had nothing to do with the Farina business and vice versa. That doesn't mean that they didn't help each other. But
And the fragrance were different or more or less similar?
no, that was a difference because otherwise
It would have been a
it
counterfeit.
would be a bit funny if you had two producers with the same product over 25 years. Because when feminists died, we had also more than 20 years of production already and exporting this product. It wouldn't make sense that we had the same product.
So now, can you tell us in a few words who was Giovanni Maria Farina, the inventor of the Haute Cologne?
Giovanni Maria Farina, or to his customers, he was Jean-Marie Farina.
Yeah.
To his purveyors, he was to his suppliers, and
Yes.
where he purchased his way. He made Giovanni Maria Farina. At those times, our correspondence with our customers all over Europe was French, even in Germany, even in Cologne. And to our business partner, it was mostly Italian because they were related Italians to whom you had trust. They would also do the collecting the money from the customers and so on. So we have a bilingual bookkeeping.
But he didn't come Jean-Marie Farina when he actually got to Cologne?
Yes, but when he came to Cologne as a young person, he was sent by his uncle to Cologne, and later he separated from his uncle from Maastricht. And for example, we find him in Paris also about 2 years before he joined the company in Cologne. So he was in French-speaking parts, Jean-Marie Farina. And inventor is a nice word,
Yes.
but actually in the perfumery field we say more creator.
Yes.
But a creator may be also the inventor of his formula.
Do you know how he came to perfumery? How he had this idea of?
Yes, actually, in his home in the valley where my family came from, in northern Italy,
Yes.
they all distilled in the winter time, also in summer. Distillation was known, traveling was known, and the company in Cologne was not the first company of the family. We had in many cities
Yes.
different companies, and so they all traded in luxury products because then they wouldn't harm the local businessmen, and because of their connections between the whole cities, it was perfume, everything which was more expensive. The same accessories for men and women on a higher scale. So this comes all together, and so you are quite close to perfumes. And from that, perfumery came very close to him, and so he started to develop own creations.
But didn't he have a grandmother or an aunt who was a distillator?
Yes, but this was all over the family. So, but he was the first one who did it continuously then to transform it to perfumery. Perfumery was really in its childhood at that time.
Yes.
Many scents you were able to buy were mono scents like romarine or rose water, but not compositions.
No, it was more pharmaceutical, or
Yes,
or it was
it was on the edge
therapeutic.
between pharmacy and luxury.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And when you say Italy, it was Santa Maria de Maggiore, no?
Yes, my family came in the 14th century in the north of Italy, and then they founded together with 6 other families this town. So this the whole valley was divided into 7 parts. And we had the part near the river, but actually at those times it was a very cold climate. The agriculture business farming was very difficult, so it was natural that they went out and
Yes, and moved on
to Paris, Amsterdam, Mainz, Cologne, and so on.
But also, what's very interesting is when you look at the different generation, it seems to be, from my point of view, and you will tell me, that there were very good on business as well as creators. You seem to all have, and when we look at how you were trained, you did a business school and then you did creation. So both is very compatible.
No, it's not compatible. If you don't have an eye on the expenses on the sales, you won't survive.
Yes,
and
that's
those
right.
who didn't are unknown today.
Absolutely. So you, in fact, in the family, you had both trainings.
Yes, it's necessary, otherwise. But the same as with other business, you can be a genius, but if the business doesn't work, you won't be able to show your genius status.
I totally agree, but it's not always the case.
No, I would prefer to keep to the perfumery, but that doesn't work.
But do you know why I say that? It's because I think maybe Anglophile or German way of thinking is more, it's normal for you. But it's not necessarily the case in France, maybe.
No, in Germany as well. But if you are an exceptional, if you are a perfumer who wants to only to be a perfumer, you have to be an employee in one of the big companies. If you want to be independent, you have to have both.
Absolutely.
That's a disadvantage, but on the other side, it gives you the freedom.
So, can you tell me why the first bottle was called Rossoli and what's the story behind?
No, that I cannot tell you because we don't know it. It's not has nothing to do with the Rosoli. They got a Rosoli brandy in the Mediterranean or in the Alps, but actually we don't know it. We use this expression for 300 years, but never.
You didn't see why it was called.
Found out why it's called Rosoli.
So then in 1912, Farina asked Wassily Kandinsky, Franz Marc, and Auguste Mack to design his bottle of eau de cologne. Can you tell us, or do you have a story about it?
Yes, before the First World War, Farina wanted to improve their bottle molds because we kept 2-3 different molds from over 100 years at that time. And every other company improved their designs, and so also Farina wanted it. And especially these and some more artists did, beside their normal paintings and designs, also industrial design. And this led later to Bauhaus and all these new movements. And this was one of the first industrial signs by real artists. And the designs were remarkable and really marvelous. And as I told you, we have many designs which have to be realized and have to be put in production. But that may be something for the future as well.
And by the way, I don't know if you've seen, but there is today in Paris an exhibition about Franz Marc and Auguste Mack at the Musée de l'Orangerie, just right
No,
now.
I haven't seen it, but that Franz Marc and Mack, they died too early. So these exhibitions are only to their paintings, probably.
And what about the rondeau and the ovale bottles? Do you have a story?
I don't know who they were created by other artists. Actually, at that time, the ingredients was the same, eau de cologne, and we wanted to have a feminine and a masculine bottle, and that's the reason why we put these bottles beside. Because at that time, especially in Germany, to use fragrances was not for men not really suitable. So
Yes.
you had
Men used more aftershave.
yes. So you should have a masculine bottle and a feminine bottle to show them what they should buy. But the ingredients didn't change.
So, considering the numerous artifacts, what year Farina's trademark was shilled for the first time?
The problem was that in the 18th century there were no trademark rights. So beginning with the French Revolution, our brand name Eau de Cologne changed already to a generic term. Everybody used it, even if they didn't produce in Cologne. Even here in Paris, many forgeries started, and later eau de Cologne became a worldwide generic. But in the 19th century, beginning in France with Napoleon, you got first efforts to make trademark rights for the producer, and we registered all our designs and names and so on. But to prosecute forgeries was very difficult at that time, because on the one side it was not clear, is it Code Civil or Code Penal? So all the courts moved the cases between them. And so this was the chance of many speculators who traded with forgeries, traded with names and so on. And that's one of them was William Mullens, who bought from a Farina who wasn't connected to our family the name, and sold and sold this name as a company name to 20 other people. So we had 20 Farina companies in Cologne at that time, and later the same thing started in Paris as well. But these were very small ones. It was not commercially, it was not really annoying, but in the opinion of the public, in the press, it was really annoying. And
so how did you do it? Did you
to correct it in
pursue
press,
them? Yes.
it was our normal customers weren't harmed by that because they know how to buy it, but probably new customers were probably irritated or misled. So this was really annoying, and later this Mullens was forbidden by law to sell under Farina, so we got
You won a few
yes, but
trial.
this went over 3 generations, and he always got new people from Italy to buy their names for his company. So he founded every time a new company, and then it was prosecuted, and then it was closed again. It's a long story, but actually, as you probably wanted to know, we didn't have any connection with this.
Yes, France.
No, this person was called Carlo Francesco Farina. And
Yes.
to make it more nearer to Farina, he called him Franz Maria Farina. And if you put Franz with only an F and make it like a G, then it's G Maria Farina. It's very close. But anyway, this is now the past, and all the law cases were won. And the last law case I had with this quarreling forgeries was 2006, when the last brand names were deleted in the trademark office.
Yes, so the relationship between the two families weren't that good at the end
Not
of it.
really. We had connections which were neutral, but in the end, only Farina is the only family survived in Cologne, and the oldest one anyway.
Actually, when did you change or moved on by calling it Farina 1709?
This trademark was first started after the First World War, 1921.
All right. So, what is the story behind the logo of the red tulip in 1924?
Yes, because at that time we had many forgeries again, because during the First World War all our trademarks were arrested and were under custody of enemy property, for example. So we couldn't oppose new registrations in many countries, for example in France, in England, United States. And so we had at that time even in Germany at that time, many new um, trademark applications which we couldn't defeat. And so to answer this, we invented the red tulip, which is reminding of the old sealing of the bottles.
Yeah.
And the tulip is one of the signs which we always used, because tulip is, in former times, it was very expensive, smells marvelous, but you cannot extract a smell out of it. So it's a symbol of the fragrance you never reach.
Yes, it's what we say in French, une fleur muette.
Yes.
Like the lily of the
And
valley.
100 years ago, even the French Society of Perfumers had the tulip as a symbol of their society. And so that was the reason to differentiate our company to forgery Farina companies. And that's why we invented this tulip, which has a long tradition, and we keep it on till today.
So you talked about one of the few famous customers, but are there other famous customers of Farina Haute Cologne that you would like to mention?
Yes. Actually, our whole history is very is with famous customers, because if you don't advertise in public, it's more the well-known or well-treated, the higher position the person has, the better. So our first important customer was the Archbishop of Cologne in 1736, and he was the brother of the Duke of Bavaria. So his brother became also customer, and from that on, the emperor in Wien was also introduced with this fragrance, because he smelled it with the Duke of Bavaria, and that's how we went up the ladder to become a leading perfume in the Rococo area times. So in 1738, when the emperor in Vienna became customer, it was in Germany well known, and all the other courts followed at that time. And so that made also in France.
In fact, they were your first influences, as we would say today.
Yes, influencers on the top level, and that went on till today.
Is there a family link between the Farina 1709 and Jean-Marie Farina Haute Cologne from Roger Gallet?
The company the Jean-Marie Farina Paris was founded by a grand nephew of our founder. So the younger brother of the first generation in Cologne, his grand child in Italy, in Santa Maria Maggiore, went to Paris and founded a new company, which didn't have anything to do with the Cologne company. And he first had been for training to his other uncle in Düsseldorf, and then he came to Paris at the age of 21. But so it was the same family, but because his father was not part of the business in Cologne, because he got all the farming area. He got the farm in Italy instead of shares in the company in Cologne. So actually, his son didn't have anything to do with the company in Cologne anymore. So it's the same family, but
different.
A sideline, actually, depending on the perfumery.
Yes, and the two perfumes are not the same.
No,
at
no.
all.
If you smell them, you see the difference. No, he created a new eau de cologne, which is more glove inside, more romarine, and so on. It's a new creation, and to make it older, he said it's from feminist.
So now let's move on to Farina today. Is the formula of the eau de cologne the same as the one created by Jean-Marie Farina, the first perfumer?
We are in the lucky position that we know all our formulas from the beginning on. The problem is that not all ingredients are available anymore.
Yes.
For example, citrate is not anymore, or violet flowers, for example. We have many ingredients which are not anymore on the market. You never get it. So the scent, the smelling is the same, made with different, on a different way.
So you had to use different ingredients
to get
in order to have more or less the same.
Yes, that's a problem. On the other side, we have also ingredients which are not allowed anymore. We have ingredients which have to be reduced. For example, the bergamot does not contain so much fucomarine as before. A very toxic, phototoxic ingredients. They have a nice smell. Many people know it from coumarin, for example. It's nearly similar. So we have to reduce these ingredients. So it's still bergamot, but it's not the same bergamot as before. So then you change the smell, and that you have to compensate with other ingredients. So in general, it's the same smell idea,
but with other ingredients.
Otherwise, you cannot do it. Yes.
So I hear that the eau de cologne is kept now in stainless steel barrels and no more in Lebanon cedar one. Why?
Because we don't have any more cedar barrels, except in our museum. On the other side, the cedar barrels were neutral for our fragrance. We didn't want to have a change from the barrel to the eau de cologne. In contrary to the red wine farmers, they want to have to harm by the oak barrels change to the wine, but we didn't want it. We want to have a neutral surrounding. So for us, it's stainless steel barrels much better. And you must remind, you lose up to 4% of alcohol per year if you have a wooden barrel.
It's interesting. How long lasts the maturation period of the eau de cologne today? Has it changed a lot? Or
no, it depends on the ingredients. 3 to 6 months. It's yes.
So it hasn't changed from the maturation period at the beginning.
It might be a bit less long than before, but it takes its time. Otherwise, it's not clear. And if you press it too much to filters, you get too much out of it. That doesn't work as well. So you have to get its time, 6 months in average.
It's very important, but it's true. I think today some brands don't respect.
Yeah, it depends on the ingredients. If you put less natural ingredients inside and less essential oils from nature, it's easier and faster to produce.
But when you have naturals, then it takes longer.
It's not a question of quality or price. You have also artificial ingredients which are expensive and which are nice to smell.
Yeah.
Otherwise, some perfumes wouldn't exist. So that is the main reason for the time of storage.
So, do you have byproducts of Farina 1909?
We had always other fragrances all over the 300 years, but the most important and most successful fragrance was always eau de cologne. So all the other fragrances vanished over the time, and new ones were put on market. And for example, Russian leather came on the market in 1925, which is still on the market. And the Tina Farina range was created by my mother in 1981.
All right. But aren't you about to launch it
No,
again?
it's still on market.
It's on. Oh, right.
Still.
Mm, so today, what are the Farina's? Where are the Farina's fragrance
In
manufactured?
Cologne.
In Cologne. Okay.
Made in
Uh,
Cologne.
And what is the most important challenge for you as a guarantee to your family company?
To pass it on in the next generation. That's the most challenging problem, yes.
And what are the countries actually where Farina is the most popular?
We are on many markets, but today we are more niche brand. So you will find us on many markets, but not so not
in a
so
wide
visible like the big players from L'Oreal and Coty, for example.
And are you distributed in
Yes.
France? And where can we find you in
In
France?
special perfumeries, not in change.
For example, in Paris.
I tell you, I have to look up. We have small perfumeries, and these are normally run by the owner, not in department stores.
Yes.
But there are also some exceptions from that, so it's not so strict. But normally we have small perfumeries to deliver.
And are there some other owned boutiques in the world apart from the one in Cologne?
No. Our own boutique is only in Cologne.
In Cologne.
That's our.
With its museum.
That's where the sales rooms had been for 300 years now.
It hasn't changed.
No, only the interior because it burned down in the last World War. But the side is the same as, and also my office and is in the same room. My writing table is in the same room as the first one also worked. So it's very continuously and traditional.
And so then you mentioned Cuir de Russie. What is the story behind?
The story behind is that in the 18th century we also sold Cuir de Russie, as well as English leather, Spanish leather for handkerchiefs. And the Russian leather was impregnated with tar and had a special smell, and this was the idea to create a fragrance like that instead of wearing these Russian leather handkerchiefs, and that's was the reason why this was created.
So, in fact, I thought you were going to launch Farina's fragrance. So then, can you tell us more about it and how many of them and what kind of fragrance they are?
The Tina Farina range 24 fragrances. According to the sign of the zodiacs, there are 12 female and 12 masculine fragrances. And these were launched in, as I told, in 1981 by my mother and many cooperation with me as well. And this is also a niche brand, which is very individual sold.
So it's in fact her collection is under Tina Farina,
That's right.
but it's separate from the company of the
No,
Cologne and
it's
the
part
Cuir
of
de Russie?
the company now. It was first started as a separate company and was merged 15 years ago. Yeah. Yes, I merged them 15 years ago. Yeah, that's right.
So you have a daughter, Louise, and she represents the 9th generation. Is she taking part in the company, and how?
No, she's 19. She started chemistry in last autumn, and but she is a shareholder of the company since her since she was 9 months old. And she takes part in the company because she accompanies me to several travels to Grasse or Paris and so on. And she's willing to continue. Yes, I have also two daughters of my brother, but they are younger. So that
We'll see in
we
the
will see.
future.
But my daughter is willing to do that.
So let's conclude by a few words about the link between Farina and Grasse. So Farina has always been in touch with Grasse. Can you tell us more, and what was the what kind of relationship they had?
The region of Grasse and also the other regions down to the Italian border were always in the last centuries center of citrus plantations, which is not anymore.
Yeah.
Neroli, petit grain, the leaves of bitter orange, neroli, the flowers of bitter orange, and also bitter orange oil came from Grasse and the surrounding areas until the 1950s. And then it disappeared in that area because of the strong winter. And since that, we get these ingredients from Spain or Sicily and not anymore from Grasse. But jasmine comes from Grasse as well. But Grasse is today more a trading center and a center of refining and blending ingredients. So Grasse is still very important for us as a source of ingredients. But we are probably the only company. We are actually the oldest company in the perfume business worldwide, and we are also the longest buyer in Grasse now.
Yeah,
Our
absolutely.
records are from 1917. From 1714, it started in our bookkeeping, the purchases which belong to Grasse.
But didn't you hear that? I've heard that in Grasse they wanted to replant some orange flower. Uh,
Yes, they can do it, but on economical, from economical point of view, it's very difficult because the wages are too high. How can you do it? If you have a minimum wage, you cannot produce these ingredients on a commercial basis. It's a nice idea, and I appreciate it very much, and I think it's a good idea, but only for very few products which have to be really on a high scale, the price scale, I mean, because if you harvest jasmine and rose in Grasse, it's so expensive that only very, very few companies are willing to buy it, like Chanel, for example. But even Chanel cannot produce all their products with the ingredients from Grasse. Jasmine.
no,
As you
it's
know,
usually
how many plantations of jasmine are in Grasse, it cannot be enough. The nice thing is in Google Earth you can count the
yes, and more so for Chanel, for Dior, it's only one fragrance, and in this fragrance, it's only eau de parfum or parfum, and they can't produce it for all of it. So,
But what Grasse is important for is the knowledge of all these things.
yes,
And so it can be also a partnership with other regions. Grasse is really the region of the knowledge. And that's also a reason for the UNESCO heritage.
yeah, and so that's why it was relevant for you to take part, because you have been taking
No, we
part.
are part because 300 years ago, this UNESCO heritage covers 300 to 400 years of plantation of fragrance plants, then extracting these ingredients for the perfumery and refining it so you can use it as perfume oils. And the third part is the knowledge of composing and creating perfumes. And the third part didn't take place in Grasse 300 years ago. The perfumers are it's a very short period that perfumers are really gross. 300 years ago or even 200 years ago, these perfumers were there where the customers were in Paris,
Yeah.
Milano,
Uh-huh.
Florence,
Yeah.
and one was in Cologne.
Yeah. All right. So thank you very much. Thank you for this interesting and unique conversation about the story of Farina 1709, your family story. If you liked this episode, do subscribe to Tattoo Senti on iTunes or SoundCloud and leave a comment or a 5-star note. As you know, Tattoo Senti loves it and it's great for the podcast channel. Until next episode on Tuesday next, feel good.